So last week we finally saw the release of Elden Ring, a highly anticipated open world RPG from the lovely and demented folks over at From Software. This is a game that wasn't on my radar as someone who's really never been into the whole Dark Souls genre of games, but here I am now making a first impressions video of Elden Ring. So let's get right into it. And before I get started, I want to reiterate that I had zero intention of buying this game. And actually, I pre-ordered it and then I thought to myself, wait a second, what the hell am I thinking? I can't play a game like this. And I actually ended up canceling my original pre-order. Well, fast forward to about a few days before its release and we start seeing these insane reviews and scores for the game. And listen, I've said numerous times on this channel that I don't typically give a damn what Metacritic has to say about anything. But for some reason, when I saw that 97 Metacritic for Elden Ring, and I had a whole bunch of friends online who were just getting hyped for it, and it was making me hyped. I think, you know what, in fact, I know that this is the first time I was swayed into buying a game specifically off of hype that wasn't even particularly my own. And so we fast forward to the next day and I get out of bed and I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna pre-order this game. And if I don't like it, then I'll just take that as the universe's way of saying, hey, these games aren't for you. And I'll cut my losses and I'll just accept the fact that I'm not cut out for these kind of games. But just a little over a week later, I'm sat here making this video, my first impressions of what is really my first Souls game experience. And I really only want to talk about two things in this video, but I've got a lot to say about those two things, so I think it'll balance itself out pretty evenly. And the first topic I want to start with, which I think is probably going to be the most relevant when discussing a game like this, is difficulty. Because let's face it, there's a stigma around these games that just naturally discourages newcomers from even wanting to try these games. And I myself am one of these newcomers who was afraid to try this game. But I gotta say, from what I hear from all my Dark Souls friends, there's apparently no better chance to get into the series than with this game. And with just a week of playtime under my belt, I think I'm inclined to agree with these people. And so the big question is the game difficult? Well, the simple answer is yes, it is difficult. But the long answer is that I think the word challenging is more suiting to this game than the word difficult. Because there's really a lot of challenges in this game. I mean, in the first enemy camp you encounter in the game, which is like right down the trail from where you walk out into the open world for the first time, you'll encounter a bunch of standard enemies and then one guy who's quite a bit tougher than a standard enemy, but certainly not a boss by any stretch of the imagination. And the entire first weekend of playing this game, I couldn't beat this guy. I died tons of times to this guy. But then eventually you start to think, okay, what am I doing that isn't working? How can I make this easier on myself? So then I look up a guide and realize, oh, I can use a spirit bell to summon NPCs to fight beside me. So that's exactly what I do. And doing this makes this enemy incredibly light work now. I might take one or two hits from this guy now, but for the most part, he's just an afterthought for me now. And this scales upwards from standard enemies like this guy all the way to the various bosses you'll encounter during your journey across the lands between. This is a game that requires you to learn as you play until eventually you're good enough to do what needs to be done. Whether it's a gigantic boss fight or a particular group of enemies, there's always something to learn. And that's incredibly important in a game like this. It's also important to know that this isn't your typical game, so I wouldn't advise someone to handle it like it is a typical game. A good example is that whenever I'm playing, a Call of Duty campaign or something like that, I get frustrated when I die playing those campaigns. I mean, another good example is Halo. I get frustrated. Nothing crazy. I'm not smashing a controller or screaming like a child, but I get a little bit frustrated. Because especially after nearly 2 decades of playing games like that, I have a certain expectation to go into it and not just not die, but absolutely dominate and be an unstoppable hero. And for games like that, those expectations work absolutely fine. But coming into a game like this, if you've got that sort of expectation, you will be humbled. You're going to make a ton of mistakes, and that's part of the learning that I was talking about earlier. Sure, you might run into an enemy that absolutely decimates you, but a lot of my deaths in this game have simply been due to a misjudgment of a certain situation. Like, there's very few times so far where I got killed by an enemy and thought, okay, I'm just not ready for that enemy. And in those cases, when it does happen, I just turn around and head right back out into the open world with the mindset that, hey, I'll come back later to this guy when I'm stronger. And actually, this leads me into my other topic, which is the open world. Because this open world is nutty. It is hands down the best open world I've played in a long time. And I have no problem putting it right up there with games like Skyrim and Red Dead 2. It's a game that really encourages and rewards exploration, and it feels like it always has your attention. And not because it's overloading you with 1,000 symbols on your map. It has your attention simply because it's good. It's smart. It's engaging in all the ways an open world should be. So you feel like you want to explore it and not like you're obligated to explore it. And in fact, I saw an interaction on Twitter between Jeff Grubb and Jez Corden that I thought perfectly summed up Elden Ring's open world. Jeff said that he wouldn't even consider most open world games now to be truly open world. He says he calls them quote-unquote map games, where they just flood the map with an insane amount of tedious and repetitive tasks that you can complete for some arbitrary prize like a weapon skin or maybe a different type of the same weapon or armor variant that you've already seen numerous times. Well, in Elden Ring, there's none of that. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that you won't be rewarded for exploring, because you most definitely will be. But it's not going to be with some reskinned armor that you've already got or some weapon skin. It's all sorts of cool shit. You can find stuff for crafting, which, by the way, you can craft so much in this game, and it's all really helpful stuff. It's really fantastic how they've laid all that out. But you'll also find things like staffs and swords or axes that you're likely not going to find anywhere else in the game. I think a good example is this twin blade that you've seen me use in some of these clips on the screen. It's legitimately my favorite melee weapon in the game, and it's one of the first things you can find in the game if you just turn around and do some exploring right behind the starting area of the game. I've also found a really dope staff that I'm using on my mage build right now, but all of this stuff isn't going to be flooding your map. In fact, all you'll find on your map is some symbols for different sites of grace, and a few other symbols to show different ruins around the map. There's no giant question marks, there's no big flashy red, green, blue, or any other color symbol taking up all sorts of space and overloading my already ruined attention span. And another similarity to Skyrim that this game has is that you'll find yourself exploring simply because the world is beautiful and you want to see more of it. I mean, the amount of times I sat back and had to take a screenshot just because of how damn good the scenery looks is insane. I've got well over 100 screenshots of this game on my Xbox right now. The point I'm trying to convey is that it's a masterfully crafted open world filled to the brim with rewards and secrets, and it's definitely a game that I could see myself sinking hundreds of hours into. All in all, for my first week of Elden Ring, in which I barely even scratched the surface of what the game has to offer, it's clicked with me so much more than I had expected it would. As someone who has never played a Souls game before, I can say with confidence that if you're on the fence about this game and you've never been into these kinds of games before and you're willing to be humbled a bit and to learn a bit, then this game is definitely worth experiencing. And there's plenty of different ways to experience it with all the different classes and playstyles the game has to offer, and I'm looking forward to continuing my journey in the lands between. But I want to hear what you folks have to say. Is this your first Souls-like game? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? Or maybe you've come here to use my video to make up your mind on whether or not you want this game. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking. Leave a like if you liked the video. And please remember to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell if you're enjoying the content and want to stay up to date on all my latest videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.